Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Leisure Geek podcast. I am Phoebus Byron. I am your host for today's podcast. And today, three things that we're going to talk about. One, I'm going to talk about the future of transportation and the concepts that are out there that have caught my eye. The second thing is I'm definitely going to talk about and geek about the new Solo, a Star Wars story trailer and the movie that's coming up. And the third thing I want to talk about is actually another space type adventure that in the 80s I completely geeked about. So let's hit this intro and I'll catch you on the other side. Okay, so the first topic I want to talk about is basically the future of transportation, and basically what I'm seeing now is modular transportation. The three articles and the concepts that have come, I basically come in front of and have seen are one, Airbus's concept where it is a pod. It looks like it only fits about 4 people, but it is a pod that can connect onto a base with wheels, so it becomes a car. Also, at a certain location, from the car, it will get picked up by basically a drone. So it will fly you to a location or to another, obviously to another place, or even up to the top of a building. And the third part of that concept is that the pod actually with other multiple pods can fit inside of a train. What I love about that idea is you basically can go from land, sea, and possibly and air and get to a location that you need to go. The only issue I have with that is currently the amount of people that can fit in one pod. It looks like it's only about 4 people. On the train side, I'm all for mass transportation. I think that's a great idea. But on the vehicle side and on the drone side, where you get to fly, in the future, how many of these things are going to be on the streets and in the air? And how available is it to everybody? So a good concept, but there are some downfalls that I think and some challenges that I think it might face. The other concept that I do also want to talk about was actually presented at CES. Was presented at CES this past year. And this concept was done by actually Toyota, where, again, it's a pod. And according to the website, it's a flexible electrical automated e-pallet. So this pod, basically the size of a large commuter bus, can be outfitted to be almost anything. It could be for a restaurant on the go, a laboratory for companies where a certain individual would have to go from location to location, get a project done if there's multiple offices spread out within a metropolitan area. It could be obviously for shipping, logistics. They even have the option or the idea of ECommerce. So if you're a small business, this pod can be your sales point for you. And then obviously there's other ideas that it can be. But the main thing for it is the idea that as a business, you can go door to door, or as a person who's working on a project that you're collaborating with several other people, but they are located in other offices. You can maximize your productivity by staying in that pod and go from building to building and getting a project done, and then finally going to the final destination and deliver that end product. So you're going to have to take a look at there's a YouTube site, and a video about it. But again, a great concept in my opinion. My issue, I guess I would see, is again, how many of these things would be on the road. I love the idea mainly because now for some of us, we can be within our close to home and have all these services come to us, not necessarily us traveling basically to a store or getting information, or actually maybe for some of us doing some work on it as we're going to a main job site or an office. But again, how many of these are going to be on the road and how busy will it be? The third idea with regards to transportation, which is actually in the works right now, is the Tesla tunnel. Elon Musk has convinced basically the city of Los Angeles to create this tunnel for Tesla owners to basically bypass traffic. It's a cool concept, but again, my concern with that is how many of these cars and how long the wait would be if there's so many Teslas on the road, and will it only be available to Tesla owners? Taking all these three ideas together, the idea of having all of these basically in Teslas and how they're working, your car basically becomes a pod when you get into the tunnel. For Airbus's pod idea, again, great. I think it's really cool that, you can just stay in one pod and then you can travel down the road. You get to a building like a skyscraper, as it shows in the video, and then instead of you having to, instead of having to go up, hundreds of floors to the top, if you're, that high executive type, you can actually fly up to the top level and land in a landing spot and get off there. And if you need to travel a long distance, the idea of having these pods getting into a train, basically, again, a train pod where multiple pods sit inside one hull, that's a good idea as well. I'm not, I don't disagree with that idea. I think that one where you get multiple people or multiple pods from one area and then you travel a long distance to another for work or for other activities is something that I like. I mean, I'm for mass transportation, and which is the reason why with regards to these concepts, the idea of just having a pod and maybe only having a few individuals in each pod isn't as is not that too great of an idea. I think the ideas can be refined, but for me, I'd like to see actually less vehicles on the road and more people getting to a destination through mass, like a main type of transportation, and then splitting off from a hub. I thought about this also because my son actually asked me a pretty good question that pretty much caught me off guard. He asked me, so if people have buses and trains and there's also bikes, what he added, why do we have cars? I understand that I do think he was trying to get to a question of, we have all of these units or these vehicles to transport us from one location to the other, and then we possibly just can take a bike from a drop-off area to our final destination. Hopefully it's not too long, but trying to explain to him just the current state of how society is pretty tough. I mean, we are currently in a state where we do like to have a vehicle. We don't always take mass transportation in certain areas. Obviously, in places like San Francisco, New York, and LA, mass transportation is a great thing. Trains, subways. But for some of us who do live out in the suburbs, it's a little tough. We choose to live out away from where we work, and to get there, the infrastructure isn't set to where we can all get on one train and go into downtown or to a central location for businesses. And then you also have the issue of businesses being spread out. It isn't always in a downtown area or one metropolitan city. It can vary. So there are so many factors, and it's hard to explain. And even now, for myself, it's a little tough that as great as these ideas, these from Airbus to Tesla and now even Toyota, as great as they are, on my side, I would love to see them address the issue with regards to mass transportation in multiples of people, not just the few. And I think the great thing about having these ideas is that hopefully it will spark people to talk about it, which I would love to hear you guys talk about it and give me your ideas. And if you guys get to see those videos or those articles, I'll see if I can actually add the links down below. But take a look at them and let's discuss. I have my opinions on it. I think they're great. They're a start, but I believe they can be better than what they are currently. Probably especially the Tesla tunnel. I'm not too keen on a tunnel that currently is only for those who have a Tesla vehicle. And if they're selling so many vehicles in a year, what would happen if only those vehicles have that ability to go from one place to the other, and what would happen if multiples and hundreds of and maybe thousands of those vehicles are online? Would that tunnel also cause a backup? So just things that I'm thinking about, and I hopefully like to open a discussion about that. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Give me a quick email, or if you're on the Anchor app, I believe you can just kind of speak your ideas, and let's talk about it. So again, just to cover Airbus, Tesla, and Toyota, I'm sure many other companies that have this idea with regards to improving transportation in the future. And obviously the one with Airbus with the pod, that brings me back to some Jetsons cartoons. So cool ideas, but I believe they should be hopefully refined for everybody, not just just groups, small groups. Let's try to hopefully think about the possibilities of people fitting in to so many pods. And again, but if it's a bus or a train, let's just try not to think about just individual pods. So I know this kind of a long little discussion, but that's kind of the thoughts I have right now. Okay, so a couple things right now I'd like to talk about a little bit more, not on the serious side, but obviously on the fun side. Let's discuss, and then these next segments talk about Star Wars. Obviously there's a new the words are not coming out of my mouth right now. I'm sorry. There was a new official trailer for Solo, a Star Wars story. And then there's another movie that may come out. Well, there is some concepts, but I hope it does come out. So let's get to the next section. Okay, so in this next segment here, I'm going to talk about Solo, a Star Wars story. Obviously, this is about Han Solo, his beginnings, well, not really his beginnings, but kind of how we can probably see how Han Solo became who he becomes in Episode 4, Star Wars: A New Hope. I did see that trailer, and I am, as great as that trailer is, and I like it, I'm not going to obviously keep my hopes up because I want to come into that movie with an open mind. I don't want to be too hyped or too low on it. I know I will be excited for the movie when it comes out with regards to the visuals, some of the characters, side characters. I'm all about characters who play a supporting role. Then also, I'm looking forward to some of the Star Wars tech designs. Those are parts of the movies that, with regards to Star Wars, I do love. And stories are stories. I mean, their stories can be told in so many different ways. You're always going to have your protagonists, your antagonists, good guys and bad guys. But the hero's journey, I guess, is always something that we all would like to see. And character development is something that always intrigues me. So based on the trailer that I saw, I'm definitely excited for Alden Ehrenreich's interpretation of Han Solo and Donald Glover's interpretation of Lando. Two characters that obviously when I was young, and seeing Empire Strikes Back and also Return of the Jedi, two characters that I remember during my time, not my time, but when I was young, always wondered what their background was. Like, how did they become prior to what we saw them in both of them in episodes 5 and 6? How did their friendship happen, or the story of the Millennium Falcon? Again, I'm not an uber geek, but from what I remember, those are the things that I always had a question about. Because again, movies. When it comes to movies, I completely love supporting characters. Sometimes so much that, man, when I watch other movies, I'm always just thinking, okay, what's that person's story? How did that person become part of this main storyline? So again, Solo Star Wars story trailer, very nice. That scene with Chewbacca doing the scene with Chewbacca literally doing a head slam on one guy was one that took me back. I was like, whoa, that's awesome. So, and the visuals of Han Solo with Chewbacca, it looks like them checking out the Millennium Falcon for the first time together. Han Solo getting on the Millennium Falcon for the first time, and you can see that Lando is, he's the first pilot, and we'll see how eventually Han wins it from him. So I'm looking forward to it, and I know it's in the next month, but pumped, and we'll see what happens. So, but let me get to a bit of news that was pretty interesting that I saw this past week. And in this next segment, I'm just going to say we are going to talk about the possibility of a movie about, this 80s movie. It seems like it's going to be a sequel. It's a sequel to The Last Starfighter. Yeah, pretty exciting. So we'll pause for a moment and we'll get to the next segment. Okay, so this final segment for this first podcast. First, I apologize. I do mumble and get my words all twisted, but I'm going to get better at this. It's late night. I'm trying to sometimes keep it a little quiet. I don't want to wake up everybody, but hey, I'm trying to get something out to you guys, and I want to discuss. That first segment was a little tough for me. I know I probably kind of sounded a little bit more negative than I wanted to sound, but yeah, we'll discuss that next time. Anyway, so this final segment, got to keep it positive here. I want to talk about The Last Starfighter. If there's a movie I am going to completely geek out on, it is this possible sequel. A story came out on the Hollywood Reporter, and the tweet came from a person named Gary Whitta. It's at Gary Whitta, GaryWhitta. Looks like on his Twitter account, he is the writer of things: Rogue One, a Star Wars story; The Book of Eli; The Walking Dead; Star Wars Rebels; The Last Jedi, Marvel, I believe on the comic side; After Earth; Abomination; and Death Jr. I don't know what those other ones are, but okay, so he helped write Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and now he's possibly going to be part of The Last Starfighter. If you look at his Twitter, he has several images and concepts. It looks like he says, thanks to the amazing Matt Alsop, I apologize if I got that last name wrong, lead concept artist on Rogue One, for creating these images for us. Yeah, looking at those images, I am in. You can take my money. This looks epic, and I hope it is epic. But the first thing, I hope they have a script soon and they make this. Because if there's, again, a storyline with regards to space, The Last Starfighter during the 80s, yeah, I'm dating myself here. I'm pretty old. But I remember, yes, we did have Star Wars. We did have Tron. Tron was also a possible video game, and you end up in this world to battle. Star Wars, yes, it was more of a storyline. Obviously, in the beginning of the credits, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. There's really no connection to basically us as humans. But The Last Starfighter, yeah, that was something that I dug as a kid, because the possibilities, again, you're just dreaming, right? But the idea that a kid who plays video games, not on a system, on a console, on a TV, but a video game arcade, and gets selected to become part of this group of starfighters, blew me away. And I think that's the reason why I geeked out on that movie so much, is as a kid, you hopefully could possibly make an impact on the world. But to be a person who is technically a gamer, loved the video game, was great at it, and then scored, basically broke the record on the game, is found out by an alien species, looks like he can pilot the real thing, and then go to space and battle. Man, I don't even know the name of the bad guys at this moment, but that was something that intrigued me. And now I definitely want to see the movie again. But if this movie does happen, yeah, take my money. I mean, I'm all in. And I hope that Universal does this right, because this is something that they can actually expand on. I mean, with the technology that they have today, this literally could be their Star Wars if they wanted to. Now, again, I don't know how far they'd go with it, but hey, if you're able to create some, simple arcade games, do a little throwback for The Last Starfighter, some arcade games, some video games, and then you have a movie come out, yeah, this is something that would intrigue me and I would pay for. So if you guys get the chance to take a look at the concept art, again, it's on Gary Whitta's Twitter handle. That's his Twitter handle. It's at Gary Whitta. Check out the post. Search it. I don't know what the exact search would be. I'm trying to find it here, but you can look at it. Obviously, search it online, but that is a movie that I'm pumped about. So, well, again, it's not made yet, but I would be pumped about. Anyway, so those are the three things today on this podcast. Future transportation. I would love to have an open conversation about that. If you're an engineer or designer or just have thoughts on transportation, let's talk about it. I mean, there's more subjects I'd like to talk about that are currently happening, in the world today. And also, if you want to talk about Star Wars, geek out, whether, you have some bad thoughts, good thoughts, you disagree with the Han Solo movie, a Star Wars story, or whether you're pumped about it, yeah, let me know. And also, let me know your thoughts on a possible The Last Starfighter, whether you care about it or not care about it. Hey, just, let me get your quick thoughts on it. For those who do, give me your thoughts, I'm trying to keep this podcast on a positive side. Obviously, I don't want too much negativity on it, but, give some constructive criticism. So let's go from there. So that's basically the first podcast. I'm, again, sorry if I have bumbled or, gone off track on some of the subjects, but yeah, my first crack at it, really. And going back to the first introduction podcast, that was pretty tough for me. Anyway, that's it for today. Actually, for this week, I'm going to try to get a pod up every week for you guys. Again, we're going to try to talk about technology, design, geek out on a little bit of Star Wars, possibly soon some Disney. Got some Disney thoughts on there. And we'll go, we'll just try to open up conversations. I'd love to hear from you guys. And again, this is Phoebus Byron. This is the Leisure Geek podcast, and signing off. We'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.